Did Jesus' clothes have any special healing power? Hello, I am Jeremy Disselkamp, preacher for the East End Church of Christ in Toronto, Canada, and this is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Matthew on walking through the Bible.
I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor to defend his cause. Maintain the honors of his word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Matthew chapter 9. We're going to be reading from verses 18 to 26. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Matthew chapter 9, beginning at verse 18. While he spoke these things to them, behold, a ruler came and worshipped him, saying, My daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live. So Jesus arose and followed him, and so did his disciples. And suddenly a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years came from behind and touched the hem of his garment. For she had said to herself, If only I may touch his garment, I shall be made well. But Jesus turned around, and when he saw her, he said, Be of good cheer, daughter. Your faith has made you well. And the woman was made well from that hour. When Jesus came into the ruler's house and saw the flute players and the noisy crowd wailing, he said to them, Make room, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping. And they ridiculed him. But when the crowd was put outside, he went in and took her by the hand, and the girl arose. And the report of this went out into all the land. As we've been discussing in this chapter, believing that Matthew is giving us a complete chronology in this book is a mistake, and one that will present itself with plenty of difficulties when we compare it to the narratives of Mark and Luke. Indeed, the first 4 chapters are presented as a chronological narrative, but then we have chapters 5 through 7, which is a sermon Jesus preached, and then in chapters 8 and 9 we're presented with many of the miracles Jesus did. From following along with Mark and Luke, it appears that some of the events of chapters 8 and 9 fit chronologically before Matthew chapter 5, while some of the events fit chronologically after chapter 7. Why would Matthew write in this way? Because he's simply grouping like things together rather than giving us a step-by-step account of Jesus' life. We do this sometimes as well in writing. In verse 18 of today's reading, it appears that this story is directly connected to the events we read of yesterday. But Mark and Luke actually have it connected with the beginning of Matthew 8, with the middle events of this chapter occurring before the Sermon on the Mount. Is this a contradiction? No, for it is possible that this story on fasting actually occurred twice, and Jesus gave the same answer. But it is also possible that these things simply meant whatever Jesus was talking about at the time, because Mark 5:21 and Luke 8:40 says that a large crowd met him when he returned from Decapolis, meaning that Jesus would likely have been preaching to them. Regardless of whichever is true, there is no contradiction, as long as we don't try to force Matthew into giving a chronological account of the life of Jesus. In today's reading, we find a ruler coming to Jesus and worshiping him. That Jesus accepted worship is another proof that he is God, for only God is deserving of worship. Matthew doesn't identify this ruler, but Mark and Luke identify this man as Jairus, a ruler of the synagogue. That a ruler of the synagogue had faith in Jesus should get us to realize that not all of the religious class rejected Jesus, even though a vast majority did. Why did Jairus come to Jesus? Because his daughter was near death, and quite possibly at that time was dead, and he wanted Jesus to heal her. Skeptics again want to accuse Matthew of a contradiction, for Mark and Luke record that Jairus received confirmation of his daughter's death along the way. However, when Jairus left his house, his daughter was near death. Without Jesus, his daughter was certain to die. So saying that his daughter had just died was accurate, for that is likely what Jairus believed, even if it hadn't have been confirmed yet. Because this man had faith in the power of Jesus, Jesus agreed to come and heal his daughter. Along the way, a rather peculiar miracle took place. While Jesus was walking, a woman came and touched his garment in order to be healed. Our version says that she had a flow of blood. Others might say it was an issue of blood or a hemorrhage of blood. What this flow of blood was from is not told to us, but she had this condition for 12 years. According to Leviticus 15:25, this meant that she would be unclean for as long as this flow of blood continued. Being unclean under the law was a major inconvenience, for it meant extra precautions had to be taken, and people had to avoid touching the things that the unclean person touched, lest they too become unclean. So the woman, knowing the power that Jesus had, and having faith that Jesus could heal her if she simply touched the hem of his garment, did just that. She was immediately healed. Was it Jesus' clothing that healed her? No, for many people, I'm sure, touched Jesus' clothing as the many throngs of people went round about Jesus, but they weren't healed. Jesus said that this woman's faith healed her because she believed that Jesus could heal her. Having healed this woman, Jesus continued on to Jairus' house. By this time, there was much sorrow, for the girl had died. However, Jesus said that she was not dead, but sleeping. He was mocked for that statement, but it was true, for when Jesus went into the house alone, he raised the girl from the dead. Jesus again was shown to have power over death, a report that went out to all the land. With that, our time is up for today. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that you can study along with us daily as we walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. If you miss an episode, simply visit one of the many platforms listed on the bottom of the screen, and you'll be able to find what you missed. In tomorrow's episode, the Lord willing, we will be continuing our study of the book of Matthew by examining Matthew chapter 9, verses 27 to 34, where Jesus heals 2 blind men as well as a mute man. We hope you'll join us for that discussion. So until then, goodbye for now, and have a great day.
I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor to